Serious people who were named for negative reasons in suicide letters. What is your story? How did their death impact your life? My mom committed suicide in 1999, when I was 9. I finally got the courage to request her suicide letters from the police about 6 months ago. There is one short snippet in her letter about me. Per my mother, I was a testy child and she found me to be quite annoying. Despite that, however, it seemed that she held off with completion of suicide, as also stated later on that she couldn't live just for me any longer. You know what? I felt loved after reading that. I laughed knowing that she found me annoying, much like any typical mother probably would think of their child. But the fact that she tried to prolong her death despite the fact that she struggled with mental health since childhood, meant the world to me. She lasted 9 whole years after giving birth to me. She was selfless for as long as she could bear it. Edit, my God, I woke up to this morning with so many comments. What warms my heart most is seeing this outpour of support. Not for me, but for everyone who is also struggling with their own mental health. I never thought it would spur so much attention, let alone so much support and healthy conversation between all the users. I'm more excited that people are openly sharing about their mental health and not continuing the stigma of it. September is Mental Health Awareness Month. Speaking about our vulnerabilities and supporting one another is the best way to destigmatize what society thinks of mental illness. Thank you all so much for taking the time to comment, for being honest with each other, for providing your insights and stories. P.S. Many of you have asked if I am okay, and have given me well wishes. It has been nearly 20 years, some days are a struggle, but her letter gave me so much closure. She is my primary inspiration to live a fulfilled, happy life. I grew up to become a clinical social worker, to provide psychotherapy to other children who may struggle with their own demons. My life is beautiful. My father committed suicide 7 years ago when I was 23. We were never particularly close growing up, but always had this unspoken father-son bond where we just did things together without saying any words. In the months leading up to his death he would write to me and try calling, but I always felt uncomfortable talking about feelings etc., so I ignored it for a later day. My sister on the other hand talked to him regularly, even on the morning he died. His suicide letter arrived a few days later with my birthday card. His letter was a paragraph long and had a gift voucher to a bottle shop, Dan Murphy's in Australia. My older sister however received a 2-page letter with his iPod and books on grieving. Very big difference. I can never tell if my short goodbye letter was the unspoken bond, or if he was genuinely pissed off I didn't give him the time of day to hear him out. Ever since, no matter how minuscule it might seem, I'll always give people the time of day to lend an ear. My best friend from high school killed herself on my birthday in 2017. We had both been very depressed and suicidal in high school and gave each other a lot of support, but in college I tried to get the help I needed and she did not. I blocked her number after she sent me some gory pictures of self-harm in early college because I just couldn't take it anymore. We were at different big state schools in the Midwest. She got in touch with me again after she attempted suicide in our sophomore or junior year of college and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. We talked some and she told me I was the only person she trusted, even though we hadn't talked in a year or two at that point. At some point in my junior or senior year of college we Skyped and she was completely trashed, taking more shots right in front of me on camera and threatening to kill herself right there on camera in front of me, laughing maniacally. After that I cut contact with her again. I think our last interaction was in 2014. After that she sent me many emails and texts and I never answered. I was finally getting my life together and I couldn't handle her manipulative negativity. On my birthday in 2017 she sent me a happy birthday text and I didn't answer. I got a text the next day from a mutual friend telling me what happened, and saying that the last text she sent to her was, "Tell backward induction happy birthday." There was no note that I'm aware of, but I'm certain that she intentionally did it on my birthday. I spent a long time spiraling and thinking about the what-ifs. What if I'd answered her birthday text? What if I'd sucked it up and been there for her even though she kept trying to manipulate and hurt me for attention? What if I had reconnected with her after I heard her mother died, or after college when she moved back to our hometown? What if? This is hard to read. I've been in relationships like this and you're being held hostage emotionally. I'm sorry you went through this as well, but happy to hear you've seemed to get your life together. Suicide is a very hard thing and the what-ifs don't go away but they fade after time. Stay strong. A friend of a friend's fiancé hung himself in a game shop and left a note blaming 1. Debt. 2. Me not having sex with him. He and I had had one conversation in the entire time I'd known him, where I said I didn't care for the sequel to Wayne's World that much and he called me a stupid bitch. That's it. Edit, I was unclear. I had a friend who had a fiancé, the fiancé had a friend who killed himself. My dad committed suicide when I was 18, I was fresh into the Navy and it was the first time in my life I didn't have the ability to call my dad every day. My parents divorced when I was a kid and my mom was the one who raised me. Anyway, I got a call from the cops that my dad passed away on Christmas Day. I had been trying to contact him since Christmas Eve. When I found out it was suicide I was shocked. My dad was always so happy and funny, though he did suffer from alcoholism, something I tried in vain for a long time to help him through. I had no idea he was suffering from such deep depression, something I also suffer from. I never read the letter myself, but my mom and sister did, and they highly recommend I not read it, so I didn't. I don't know the specifics, but I know he said his daughters didn't love him. That hurt me so much because I loved him to death. We had our disagreements, obviously, we're father and daughter, but I never thought I gave him any reason to think I didn't love him. It's something I struggled with for a long time, and it almost led to me attempting suicide myself. Now that I'm older, 24, and enough time has passed, I know that what he wrote wasn't what he truly felt. I remember all the time we spent together and I know there's no way he could really believe I didn't love him. I know he felt like he wanted to be a better dad, but I think even with his flaws he was great. If I could tell him anything today it would be that I'm sorry that I ever did anything to make him think I didn't love him. Unfortunately we never get those opportunities when things like this happen. I was named, but she didn't die. My ex-girlfriend. She was not my first, but I was hers. Her parents never accepted that she was gay. I knew our entire relationship that she was depressed and I honestly tried to help, but I was 17. Eventually, she was talking about killing herself near nightly and I couldn't take it anymore. I broke up with her. I didn't learn until sometime later that she tried to kill herself. A friend showed me her rant on Tumblr where she blamed me. Man, it fucked me up. I think I sobbed for weeks thinking about how much I must have hurt her. Took a lot to learn that it wasn't necessarily my fault, that we were kids and she needed help I couldn't give. The great thing is she's doing much better now. We don't talk often but we've spoken about what happened. It still fucks me up a little though. In my sophomore year of high school, video games were my life. I would frantically rush home to do all of my homework early just so I could play video games. I made a friend online, and this friend was a lot like me. He only cared about video games and he loved talking about it too. We would go on servers and talk about how wrong people about some aspects of the game. When we grew closer, eventually he opened up to me about how he had depression and how he had suicidal thoughts. There was a day that we finally disagreed on something, and we had a very heated argument, to the point where I told him that I wouldn't care if he just disappeared suddenly. He took a lot of offense to that, and the next day he sends me his suicide note saying how our argument was his tipping point and that I had caused him to do what he did. Fortunately, he survived, but a week after his attempt he sent me a letter telling me how his life would never be the same again and that he would never recover from going through something so traumatic. I felt extremely guilty hearing all of this. For the longest time, I couldn't talk to people as confidently as I used to because I was constantly worried about the consequences of my words. I became depressed, and it affected my behavior for a long time until I finally opened up about it recently to my friends and family. There are still days that I wake up and I think about what happened, to the point where it determines what mood I'm in on that day. Otherwise, I have been making slight progress, and I've finally been gaining the strength to get out of bed and live my life normally. Edit, thank you guys for the overwhelming support. I haven't been in contact with this person since the incident because they blocked all contact with me, but I think it's for the best. It was clear that he needed some distance from the computer, especially since the community from that game could be toxic at some times. As for how I know for sure he attempted to kill himself that day, we were part of a large group of friends, and the day he sent the suicide note, not only did he send it to me but he sent it to my group of friends. We looked at the news for the area that he lived in, and there was an article about someone who attempted to jump off a bridge that matched the physical description of what we saw when we did video calls together. I bottled in all of this for years, and because I did so I lost a lot of things that I could have kept if I had talked to someone about it. However, I've started to finally talk about it, and now I feel immensely better. The impact that reading these comments has truly touched me, so I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your day to share your stories with me and offer me incredibly helpful advice. I had a friends with benefits relationship with a girl who was depressed. Neither of us wanted the commitment of a serious relationship. I know it's selfish to say, but her depression was taking a big toll on myself, and when she said she was getting feelings for me, I knew it was time to break things off. Unfortunately, that was incredibly difficult to do, and I sat on it for a while, never being happy and reserving my ever-growing anger for her depression. After a few weeks I finally did it. I let go and in the nicest way I could, told her that I couldn't see her anymore. She questioned me for a few days and I did my best to respond in kind. She went quiet for about a week, and I got a message from her roommate reaching out to me as her boyfriend that she had hung herself a day after our last conversation. Her suicide note was half finished on a Word document. I was named along with her family, an ex of hers who she said caused her depression to start, and her closest friend. She said one night she dreamt that she watched herself rip out her heart while we all watched, her ex and I with our backs turned. As she did, she felt like it meant nothing to her and that it validated her will to die. She'd previously made attempts to commit suicide, one of which I was there to talk her out of. Unfortunately, I couldn't stop this one, and I've never felt more upset and responsible for anything. As someone who's dealt with depression, what we say the reasons aren't always the real reasons. Sometimes there aren't really any reasons. The worst residual effect is waking up from a dream about them. In the dream and for a few moments after you wake up, you feel like they are still alive, and then reality sets in. And it's almost like the first time you found out all over again. I still think of him almost every day, still dream about him sometimes. The day I found out he died, I remember driving on the highway, fantasizing about getting back together with him after he got his life together. I remember the last time I ever saw him, and the look on his face that didn't mean anything to me until after I found out he died, and realizing that he knew it was the last time he would see me. He was so young, and I often wish I could go back in time and tell him to just keep fighting for a couple of years, and then he'd be past it and okay. His family was completely destroyed, and all of them pretty much gave up after he died. I still have panic attacks whenever I can't get a hold of someone I love, because the pain that comes with finding out you've lost them forever is almost unbearable at first. Falling asleep is the hardest part, not because you might dream about them, but because waking up from the dream hurts so bad. I don't know if I was specifically named in the actual letter or not, as I never was able to read it, but many years ago, I struggled on and off for quite some time with alcoholism. During a period of time when I was not drinking, I met, dated and ended up moving in with a woman, her children and her mother. Things were really good for a while. Her mother had been to treatment for alcohol abuse as well, but hadn't drank in some time. The house was alcohol-free and we were all doing what we needed to do, and living productive lives. At some point, I decided to throw all of that away and relapsed. An underage coworker asked me to buy a bottle of liquor for him to take to a party, to which I agreed. I bought his bottle and the lady behind the counter asked if I wanted anything else. Without even thinking about it, I bought a pint of vodka. Shortly thereafter, I began drinking heavily again, trying my best to control it, but that only lasted so long. I fell into a pattern of a 3 to 4 day bender almost every week, which as it progressed, led to several hospital visits and a slew of other insanity. Within a few weeks after I started drinking, my girlfriend's mom started drinking again too. So, we began drinking together when my girlfriend wasn't home. Several months passed. I was unemployable, as was her mother. We were existing only to drink, and her mother was spending her SSI check on booze, and I was stealing money in the middle of the night from my girlfriend to buy my bottles the next day. I was supposed to be a contributing member of the household, but I was a complete waste of negative space, consuming and stealing what little there was. I tried quitting several times, but would finally land an interview and madly decide to celebrate, thereby setting the whole thing in motion again. CPS ended up getting involved, the kids were removed to their dads, the lights were cut and the landlord began eviction. My parents flew me home when they discovered the mess I was in and had helped create, and I eventually got the help I needed. I found out from mutual friends during my early stage of recovery that the eviction was proceeding and that my girlfriend had met someone new she was moving in with. She had gotten her eldest, her son, back. Daughter was still with dad. Her new beau lived in a one-bedroom, and there simply wasn't going to be enough space for her mom. Her mom called me a few times, understandably upset about the situation. I pleaded with her mom to get into a sober house or go back to treatment, but she kept insisting she was too old to start anew, and that everything was just too messed up. A few weeks after the last time I spoke with her, she rented a hotel room, filled all her prescriptions for the month, wrote a goodbye letter and took every pill. I was shocked, and my heart still hurts all these years later for whatever part, great or small, I played in her passing. I know I'm not absolutely responsible for her death. The choice she made to not seek help and to end it was hers, but knowing that I waltzed into their happy home and set off a bomb haunted me. So, I've made it part of my living amends, to never again be the person I was, partly in her name, and I pray that she found the same peace in her passing I was able to discover in sobriety. So I strive to be a better person, to not wreak that type of damage again, and to help other people struggling with their own demons become better people too. I was named in a suicide letter in, I guess, a positive light? Her note said she was sorry, and she loved us, me, and one of her other close friends, but she couldn't do it anymore. The last time I saw her she said we'd go get cupcakes the next week. Instead she killed herself over Valentine's Day, with the handgun her ex-boyfriend bought her. I cannot put into words what this did to my life. It's like everything was split into a time before, and a time after, and nothing has been the same since. It has been 5, nearly 6 years, and I still think about her every day. I wish I had pushed her harder to get help, but at the same time I know she was determined and had made up her mind. For those thinking about it, I think the best advice I have heard is as follows: think of one thing, maybe it's small, one thing that you want to see how it turns out. Maybe you're waiting for the next GOT book, maybe you want to see the next episode of your favorite TV show, maybe your favorite niece has a birthday party next month. Just live a little longer for that thing, and while you're doing that keep collecting things. And of course, if you can, seek professional help. Therapy and meds will do wonders to unfuck the bad brain chemistry that lies and tells you that life is not worth living. And I'm available if people want to talk. My ex-girlfriend in April of last year attempted suicide. I had just gotten out of my depression episode and I met her. But she was always so negative and manipulative and always made me seem like I wasn't doing enough to help her. So I tried to break up with her, but she threatened suicide and made her best friend message me over and over again, guilt-tripping me because of how much she loved me and how I needed to be with her, otherwise it would destroy her. I gave in, kept living miserably for a while. I finally gave up and said I can't do it anymore, and she took a shard of broken glass, slit her wrists, and lay down on my front lawn in a tank top. Ambulance and parents were called. I haven't spoken to her or her friends since. It was traumatizing and I still can't get over the she situation. I just wanna say, I finished writing a suicide note about an hour ago. Was going to contact my dealer for some heavy drugs, planning on ODing in my car tonight. That thought has stopped now, reading all the people who have suffered. I'm not sure what I should do next, but I've deleted the suicide note. Suppose that's a good start. Update. I like to thank all of you who posted, upvoted and directly messaged me. Your support meant more than you know. I've arranged an appointment for some professional counseling for later this week and am looking forward to healing. For those who else may be struggling, please see this example of how much strangers can save a life. Don't be afraid or ashamed to seek help. Thank you. Oz. Thanks for watching our video. If you like it, please smash the subscribe and like button to support the channel, so that we can create more quality content in the future.